Tooth pain is brutal. It starts quietly, a dull ache that you notice once, then twice. Then every time you eat, every time you breathe cold air, every time you try to sleep. Then one morning you wake up and half your face is swollen, and you can't think about anything else, just the pain. Constant, pulsing, inescapable. Tooth pain doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care what you have to do that day. It just takes over. And the worst part? It has been doing this to humans since before we were fully human, since before we had a word for it, since before we had anything at all. Most people assume dental problems are a modern issue. We blame sugar, processed food, bad habits, not brushing enough. And while those things absolutely play a role, the truth is far older and far darker. Because the oldest confirmed case of deliberate dental treatment in the human fossil record is 14,000 years old. Not a cavity accidentally preserved in bone, a cavity that someone tried to treat with a stone tool while fully awake. In 2015, researchers analyzing a tooth found in a cave in northern Italy called Riparo Villabruna discovered something that changed the timeline of dentistry entirely. The tooth, belonging to a young adult male who lived approximately 14,000 years ago, had a large cavity in one of its back molars. But the cavity hadn't simply been left alone. The interior showed clear signs of deliberate scraping and excavation with a small, sharp flint tool. Someone had looked at that tooth, understood that something inside it was causing the pain, and attempted to remove it. No anesthesia, no metal instruments, no sterile environment. Just a person, a stone, and a level of dental pain severe enough to make that procedure worth attempting. The researchers noted that the scraping marks were precise and consistent, suggesting not a panicked attempt, but a practiced technique. Someone had done this before. But that wasn't the beginning. It was just the oldest confirmed treatment. The pain itself started much earlier. To understand why, you need to understand what a cavity actually is. The mouth contains hundreds of bacterial species living in a thin film across the surfaces of your teeth called dental plaque. When you eat carbohydrates, those bacteria metabolize the sugars and produce lactic acid as a byproduct. That acid, sitting against the enamel of your teeth, slowly dissolves the mineral structure. Over time, the enamel breaks down, a hole forms, the bacteria get deeper. They reach the dentin, the softer layer beneath the enamel, which contains microscopic tubules that connect directly to the nerve. That is when the pain begins. And it does not stop until the source is removed or the nerve dies, which is its own kind of agony drawn out over weeks. This process requires carbohydrates. For most of human evolutionary history, carbohydrates were relatively rare in the diet. Hunter-gatherers ate meat, marrow, eggs, fish, seasonal fruit, and some tubers. Their teeth show remarkably low rates of cavities compared to what came after. Researchers analyzing the dental remains of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers from multiple sites across Europe and Africa have found cavity rates as low as 1 to 5% across all teeth examined. For context, modern cavity rates in adults without regular dental care run between 60 and 90%. The difference is diet, specifically the proportion of fermentable carbohydrates in daily food. Then, around 15,000 years ago, in North Africa and the Middle East, something began to change. Populations started incorporating wild grains into their diet in larger quantities, grinding them into paste and consuming them regularly. Researchers studying the dental remains of the Natufians, the same population who were brewing beer in caves in Israel 13,000 years ago, found cavity rates dramatically higher than those of earlier populations. Some individuals showed cavities in more than half their teeth. The shift to grain consumption, even before formal agriculture began, was enough to transform the oral environment entirely. More carbohydrates meant more bacterial acid production, meant more cavities, meant more pain. By the time farming spread across Europe and Asia, toothache had become one of the most common forms of suffering in human life. A 2014 study published in Nature Genetics analyzed the oral microbiome preserved in the calcified dental plaque of ancient skeletons spanning 7,500 years of European history. What they found was a clear and consistent pattern. As populations shifted from hunter-gatherer diets to agricultural grain-based diets, the bacterial communities in their mouths changed dramatically. The bacteria best adapted to producing acid from sugar became dominant. The diversity of oral bacteria collapsed. The mouth became an increasingly hostile environment for teeth, and there was nothing anyone could do about it because no one understood why it was happening. Ancient humans knew toothache well enough to write about it. A Sumerian text dating to approximately 5,000 years ago describes a small worm that lives inside the tooth and causes pain by moving around. The toothworm theory of dental decay, the idea that a parasite inside the tooth was responsible for the pain, persisted across cultures for thousands of years. Versions of it appear in ancient Egyptian medical texts, in Chinese medical literature from the Han Dynasty, in medieval European medical manuscripts, and in Ayurvedic texts from ancient India. Different civilizations, no contact with each other, all arriving at the same explanatory framework because the alternative, that the food they were eating was dissolving their teeth from the outside, was not visible and therefore not conceivable. The worm theory wasn't stupidity. It was the best available explanation for a phenomenon that had no obvious external cause. Treatment, when it existed, was as creative as it was desperate. Sumerian physicians prescribed a paste made from henbane seed, a plant with genuine analgesic properties due to the presence of alkaloids, including hyoscyamine and scopolamine, mixed with gum mastic and applied directly to the affected tooth. Egyptian medical papyri described tooth remedies involving cumin, incense, and onion. Chinese practitioners used a paste containing arsenic compounds to kill the nerve, a technique that, while toxic, was chemically effective at stopping the pain by destroying the tissue causing it. Roman dentists extracted teeth using a tool called a dentagra, a form of forceps, and prescribed wine mixed with astringent herbs as a post-extraction treatment. None of them knew what a bacterium was. All of them understood that something inside the tooth was the problem, and that removing it or killing it was the solution. The Mehrgarh site in present-day Pakistan, the same location where researchers found evidence of dental drilling for cavities dating to 9,000 years ago, shows a level of technical sophistication that took decades to be taken seriously by the scientific community. Using small flint drill heads mounted on bow drills, practitioners at Mehrgarh drilled into the crowns of living teeth with enough precision to follow the path of decay into the interior of the tooth. 11 teeth from 9 individuals showed evidence of this procedure. The holes were clean, shaped, and in some cases showed evidence of repeated work, meaning the patient came back more than once. These were not single, desperate interventions. They were ongoing treatments performed by people who had developed a practice technique over time, passed it on, and refined it across generations. So did ancient humans get toothaches? Constantly, relentlessly, for as long as they were eating carbohydrates, which is to say, for as long as they had been human and longer. What changed with the agricultural revolution wasn't the existence of tooth pain, but its scale. A condition that had affected a small percentage of the population became effectively universal. One of the most common forms of physical suffering in all of human history, experienced by nearly every person alive in every civilization that ate grain, which is to say, nearly every civilization that ever existed. The next time you sit in a dentist chair with your mouth open and someone with a metal instrument starts working on a tooth, you are participating in a tradition that is at minimum 14,000 years old and probably significantly older. The drill is different. The anesthesia is different. The understanding of why the cavity formed is completely different. But the fundamental experience, a person with a damaged tooth, another person attempting to fix it, has been happening continuously since before the invention of writing, before the invention of pottery, possibly before the invention of farming. The toothworm doesn't exist. The pain always did.